and I wanted to share with you that I had a remarkable day today. I had the privilege to be with Pastor Jürgen Mathesius. I hope I said that right. I've been practicing his last name. And he and his wife, Leanne, were a great blessing to me. They actually came to a service where we were facing a shutdown. And they drove all the way up from San Diego, and they're part of the C3 churches. And very encouraging. And at the conclusion of the service, they made a commitment to go back to San Diego and encourage the churches connected with C3 to open. And they've been open since, and they're facing struggles, but they are committed to opening up California. And as I've said earlier, where we have in Ventura County, we had the 6 boxes for the county to open, and the one box that we hadn't accomplished yet was a number of cases per day. But if you looked at the box in the upper right-hand corner, that was the number of testings per day. And we were over in the number of testings required by the state. And if you just lowered that to the minimal number that the state required, by percentage, this would itself be resolved. So it was a matter of semantics, and we were ready to open. Well, as you know, the governor, we have all these churches in Ventura County who are trying to comply by the governor's standards. They've been meeting outside, social distancing, masks in this heat. And now the governor comes out and completely erases all of that, takes all authority to the state level, removes it from the county's hands, and does 4 color-coded categories, purple, red, orange, and yellow, and places Ventura County in the purple. And I think there's 2 or 3 counties that are even in the yellow portion. There's no green. There's nowhere where the governor is going to lift his restrictions, his draconian restrictions upon anyone in the state. And now the restrictions that he's placed, the church itself isn't even considered open to 50% until the yellow box. And the chance of even coming out of purple, it's going to take these congregations into the winter months, and they're going to be less occupancy. They can only get to 50%, and that's months away. And the reason why I'm so encouraged by Pastor Jürgen is when Jack Hibbs and John MacArthur, and now I've heard Shepherd of the Hills, and I also know Lance Ralston and Sam Gallucci here in our own county, handful of others, they've opened their churches, and they're facing a backlash, and it's almost as though we're kind of dancing alone in relation to this. But then when you have a guy like Jürgen drive 2.5 hours, 3 hours up to Ventura County to figure out how do we open, what does this look like, trying to gain understanding, and then going back with what he learned, and then sharing that with the group of churches he belongs to. And we're watching this in Los Angeles. We're watching it. Mike McClure up at Calvary Chapel San Jose is facing $5,000 fines. Che On, who oversees 183 churches in California, they're all opening. And Mike's already open. There's another church in Santa Clara that's facing fines. He's open.
Hey, Tim Frisch with A Frisch Perspective here. That was Pastor Rob McCoy that you were listening to. He's a pastor of a church out in Ventura County, California, one of the churches that is defying the California government's restrictions on indoor worship services. And he's talking there about how there's really a growing movement. He was one of the earlier pastors, I believe, who decided to have indoor worship services based on what he saw the statistics were on the COVID-19 situation. He didn't feel it was justified for the government to be putting these restrictions on churches. He also talks about how the government initially had certain standards and then changed the whole system and actually became stricter, and that it's really going to be a while, he says, before churches could ever open up. Even to 50% capacity is going to take some time. So there's a lot of pushback that's happening, a growing pushback that's happening in California. And I've been talking about this particularly with the case of Pastor John MacArthur and Grace Community Church, which we're following and waiting for the hearing that's going to take place on that situation this Friday, September 4th. I did want to mention that Pastor McCoy is someone who has actually faced some consequences for what he's done. I did mention this article a while ago from August 12th, where it says a judge on Tuesday declined to order the immediate closure of a Ventura County church that has been holding indoor worship services in defiance of coronavirus-related health orders and despite a court order barring it from doing so. So the judge in that situation didn't come down harshly on the church. However, an article dated August 21st says judge holds Newbury Park Church pastor in contempt for holding indoor services despite restraining order. A Newbury Park church was fined $3,000 along with its pastor was held in contempt of court Friday for refusing to stop holding indoor church services despite a temporary restraining order and public health orders prohibiting them. So Pastor Rob McCoy apparently was held in contempt of court and the church has been fined, but then after that happened on August 23rd, the next Sunday, we answer to a higher calling. Worshipers continue defying coronavirus orders by gathering for indoor church services. Despite a temporary restraining order, Godspeak Calvary Chapel in Newbury Park opened its doors once again to hundreds of worshipers on Sunday, and they are continuing to have services. So what I'm showing you here is that there are some consequences that are being faced. I've talked about a pastor named Jack Treber, who his church is also facing serious fines. And this church here that I'm talking about, Pastor Rob McCoy's church, facing serious fines. At the same time, nobody has really shut down their buildings or arrested anybody. So it's really at that standoff point that I've been talking about, real standoff situation. And we're going to continue to follow these situations, be in prayer for God's guidance and wisdom and provision. As I said, September 4th, this Friday, is going to be the hearing concerning Grace Community Church. So we're really interested to see what happens with that situation. I don't know that we will be given an answer this Friday, but we know that the hearing is supposed to take place then. So we will see what happens with that. I just wanted to keep you updated on situations like this and also show that there are a growing number of churches that are joining this side and saying, yeah, we feel that things are not being dealt with fairly for churches out in California in light of the statistics on the COVID-19 situation. So it does seem to be a growing movement, but I think the legal situation is going to have bearing on what ultimately happens in these different church situations, and that's why we're waiting for these court hearings for Grace Community, other churches as well, and we'll see what happens. It's always great to hear different perspectives on these situations, so feel free to leave comments in the comments section below. Just try to keep those comments positive and edifying to discussion. But thank you as always for listening to what I have to say from A Frisch Perspective.